Hello, everybody. We're live today. Welcome to the Talk With Kiet show, where we connect people, ideas, and capital to help make a difference in the world. Today, I am on with Dan Feliciano, the CEO and founder of Clotheslyne. I might have screwed up some of the pronunciation. But Dan and I today will talk about his extensive career and entrepreneur journey, as well as building a business for the future of laundry. Now, I'm sure you've all aware, like I dressed like this today because today is Chinese Lunar Eve. So, to those that celebrate, happy Lunar New Year, happy Year of the Dragon. And Dan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And happy Lunar New Year. We were talking before. It's one of my favorite times of the year after having lived in Asia for a bunch of years. Before that, I didn't realize how awesome it is. But yeah, I'm excited about it.
No, it's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely touch on that journey later on because we talk on like eating durian and in Malaysia and Singapore is going to be fun. But usually where we start from the show is really about giving the audience a deeper understanding of the origin story. This show is about interviewing founders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs, and also even capital allocators, and just trying to understand, their origin story and how they get to where they are. And so, Dan, from your perspective, like, what's your origin story?
Yeah. So let me start off by just kind of giving my 15-second version of what Clotheslyne is, and then we'll talk about a little bit how we got there. But basically what Clotheslyne is a two-sided marketplace that allows individuals and small businesses, quite frankly, to outsource their laundry demands to gig workers that are in their community. The big difference with us is we allow our gig workers also to build a book of business. So our model is closer to rover.com or care.com than it is to Uber. And so the customers choose each other, they create relationships, and then our customers and our clothesliners outsource the laundry, and then the laundry gets done by the clothesliner at their house in their own washing machines, and it gets returned back in 24 to 48 hours. So we launched in upstate New York 2 years ago, and since then we've grown to 8 states. We have 400 clothesliners on our marketplace, 1,200 customers. We've done 12,000 loads of laundry over those last 2 years. But yeah, the way we got there is, I'm a dad. I'm a dad with 2 kids and a wife and a ton of laundry. And my co-founder at the time was a college kid. His parents were sick of him bringing his clothes home for Thanksgiving without them being done. And so one day we just kind of got started talking about like laundry and how we solved the problem. And, and where we live in upstate New York, unlike in Manhattan, where you come out of your apartment building and there's like a million laundromats on every single block. Where we live, there just isn't. The closest one for me is 20 minutes away. They don't do pickup and delivery. And so there weren't really any options, and we're kind of like forced to spend hours of our week just doing laundry. And it's not like just the doing of the laundry. It's like there's the laundry chair that has like all the laundry on it, and then that laundry maybe gets done or it doesn't get done before you wear it again. And so you're like, it just is this thing that's omnipresent. And so Camden and I, my co-founder, were like, there's a better way to do this. I have a washing machine. Other people have washing machines. Maybe they would like to do somebody's laundry. So we started researching. It turns out people have been outsourcing their laundry since the Romans. And so we were like, hey, there's a way for us to build a tech solution that allows the people who want to do laundry to match up with the people that hate doing laundry or are overwhelmed by their laundry. And then we can facilitate that connection. And so that's kind of how Clotheslyne was born. That's a little bit about the journey, about how we got here and the pain points that our family found. And, obviously that translates to a whole load of other people as we've been pretty successful over the last 2 years.
So, let's go a bit further than that, right? Let's start with, your origin career. Like, you were in the Marine Corps for 10 plus years, right? Talk about that experience. And
Yeah. So, I mean, we can go even further back than that. So, I mean, doing work and like working, that's just like who we are. My family, that's who I am. That's who Camden is. I started working when I was 12. I had to literally go to Middletown, New York, city hall to get a special permit to work before you were legally allowed to work. And so I started as a paper boy when I was 12 years old, the original gig work, right? Child labor gig work. But I started delivering newspapers when I was 12, and I did that every single day, every morning, except for Christmas, for 6 years until I was 18 and went off to college. And so then I went off to college. I worked my way through college. And then, yeah, like myself, my brother, were both Marines. My father was in the Navy. My grandfather was in the Navy, 20 years on submarines. And so I went off to the Marine Corps. I was a pilot, helicopter pilot, CH-53 Echo. I want to send my condolences to the crew out in San Diego that just had that fatal accident. I flew that route in very bad conditions many times myself. And so when I heard about that incident, I was extremely sad about that because I've been there. But yeah, 10 years in the Marine Corps. And the one thing about flying helicopters or flying in general in the military is like you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. You have to be able to execute. You have to be willing to listen to people's feedback on that plan. You have to be able to adapt as you move. And you have to be able to do it all in real time. And you have to be able to think about all that stuff in 3 dimensions, right? Because you are not just going forward and back. You are going up and down and left and right and yawing. And then also on top of that, you're talking on the radio. And so it's hard, but I did it, and it was amazing. I have 3 combat tours, 2 in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq. I was a flight school instructor down in Pensacola, Florida, training guys, teaching them how to be good at what they do. I ended up as a major in the Marine Corps when I got out after 10 years, and then after I finished that portion, really kind of intensive, I transitioned to aviation logistics at Shell Oil Company. I got this amazing opportunity out of New Orleans. Just kind of fell into it, really. And that introduced me to the business world. So I had gone from this very highly operational world where you had some budget constraints, you had some understanding of the need to fulfill requirements, but it was very operational. It was very problem solving. It was extremely oriented towards delivery on time, on target. And then I moved to the business world where now you had to do all that, but there was also this incredible requirement to meet demands from a budget perspective, from a delivery perspective, on different levels. So instead of just thinking in 3 dimensions while you're flying a helicopter, you're thinking in multiple dimensions within a business unit of one of the biggest companies in the world. And so that was eye-opening for me, but awesome, right? I started in New Orleans as the head of aircraft logistics for the Gulf of Mexico. In a couple of years, I was the head of aircraft logistics for all of continental United States. And then a couple of years after that, I got promoted to headquarters in the Netherlands, where I was a kind of in-house consultant for a number of business units and an auditor, a global auditor for different business units throughout the world, really. But I had a focus on Africa, Europe, and Russia at that time. So that was super exciting because now instead of just knowing American culture and business acumen, I had to now understand, well, what does business look like in Italy versus Gabon versus Russia versus Nigeria, where all these different places where I had to support different business units and different ways of thinking and different priorities, the ways that government interacts with businesses, businesses interact with the people. And then I finally finished my time at Shell as the head of aviation logistics for all of Southeast Asia in Malaysia. And while I was there, I actually got the opportunity to be the spearhead of a task force that the Malaysian government, so all the oil companies in Malaysia work for Petronas. Like that's it. Like Petronas owns all the oil. And so they have all these task forces that they put together where they try to coordinate the different businesses so that they can optimize profits and margins on kind of a national level. And so they put together a task force that was optimizing aviation logistics throughout the entire country and other different things. All these task forces were run and manned by Malaysians, except for mine. I was the only expat in charge of one of these task force. And so I was responsible for contracting and operation excellence for every business in Malaysia, not just Shell, but Exxon and Petronas and all these ones. We all came into the same task force, and I was able to kind of work not just within the culture, but within the culture of multiple businesses and try to figure out solutions. And that was really, I was really proud of that moment because, like I said, I was the only expat to be recognized as somebody that they wanted to work with, and that I had, the ability to deliver at that kind of level was really exciting for me. And so that's kind of like my business background.
Yeah, but the cultural difference, like even U.S., Europe, and Asia, is extremely diverse, right? Tell us about a bit of that, just to give people some perspective.
Yeah, so culturally different is probably an understatement, especially when you're dealing with a guy who grew up in New York and then joined the Marine Corps and then worked for like the Royal Dutch Oil Company in the United States and then Europe. So you have a very specific way of looking at how you're going to deliver on projects, on budget, on time. Everything is like very mission oriented, very goal oriented. And then I move over to Malaysia, and everything in Malaysia is about relationships. It's 100% about a respectful way of interacting with who you need to interact with on a respectful way that still moves the company and the organization in the right direction. And so Malaysia is split up into three main groups. There, the Indian population, the Chinese population, the Malay population, and then we lived in Borneo. And so there were, people in Sarawak that were a different type of people. So yeah, you just had to learn to deal with it. And if you didn't learn to deal with it, then it was going to be a very difficult situation. But if you did learn to deal with it, the way that you were able to form teams, it was on a different level, right? So in the United States, you form teams, you have a business goal, you move everybody towards that business goal. In Malaysia, you form teams, you have a business goal, you move towards that business goal, but then you have a very personal relationship as well. And you spend a lot more time eating lunch together, eating dinner together, checking in on each other. There was a time when I had to go to the hospital and when I was finished, my whole team was there. My son was born in Malaysia, and the day after he was born, my whole team came to see my son. And that was just what they did, right? As long as, you were respectful of them, they became exceptionally present in your life. And I loved it. It was the best team I ever worked with. It was hard for me to kind of understand it at first, but it was a huge growth moment for me to understand the value of people, relationships, not just business, not just mission oriented, but how far can you go if you can build a better team? And we'll talk about this a little bit later. It's one of the underlying premises of Clotheslyne and why we built our business the way that we built our business, as opposed to some other ways that you could build our gig business.
Yeah. Well, also talk about the context that people don't talk about. You live in Europe, and then you live in Asia. You're a family man. You have a family.
Yeah.
The experience, moving your family around the world. I went through the same experience, and I can't really talk about mine, but curious to hear about yours from that perspective.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. The concept of who you are changes when you work outside of the United States. So when you work in Europe, and the very first time, so I moved to Europe, and I don't know, I think when they were transitioning me, I think I had almost 4 months of vacation time on the books, right?
Wow.
From the time that I had spent in New Orleans. And so I'm transitioning to my business unit in the Netherlands, and they're like, yeah, you can't bring that like time off over here. Like, that's not how we operate. You need to go take some time off because you're like, that's not what we do over here, right? You need to take some time off when you come over here, and you need to get comfortable with the fact that, you know, like that there is two sides of how you operate. There's, you know, there's the work side, and then there's the family and personal side. And so that was a huge difference for me, and you know, and how I looked at the world, and then I had to come to grips with it, right? And one of the things that I found was people were really, really, really great um, at what they do while they were working, because when they were off, like, they had some time off, and so then when they came back to work, they were refreshed and they were ready to go. And it's the first time I ever ran into people who um, took a full 30 days in a row off. And what I found out was, like, Shell didn't stop working just because my colleague took a month of work off, right? Like, that concept that you can't do that was you know, was foreign to me until I saw somebody do it. And then that was eye-opening. And then that translated into Malaysia as well. When I went to Malaysia, it was the same thing, right? Not only was time valued over there, but like I said, the relationships that you built between each other was valued, and then you spent time with your family, and then, like, your colleagues became part of your extended family. I have amazing pictures of barbecues and stuff on the beach, and trying new foods and new adventures, all because I spent time with the people that were over there, and then they shared their adventures and their lifestyles with me, and it challenged me to be a different and better person.
Yeah, yeah. And tell us about your experience eating durian.
So I always I have a very specific theory about durian. I believe that that durian was invented by, or was discovered by, the hungriest human being ever to be on the face of the earth. Like, I have to believe that the guy or woman who first ate durian was so unbelievably hungry that he was willing to overlook all of the things that durian. So for people who don't know, durian is this giant gourd like fruit, and there's seasons over in Southeast Asia, but it's like this giant thing. It's huge. It's got spikes on the outside of it. It has a very extremely pungent smell to it. When you open it up, it looks like the inside of like a person's head. And so, like, I'm thinking to myself, the first guy who ate this was like, yeah, I'm starving, and this thing that has spikes on it, I don't care. I'm going to disregard the spikes.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he's like, I'm going to disregard the smell, and I'm going to disregard the fact that it looks like a brain, and I'm still going to eat it. And so yeah, I mean, I started small because, you know, I'm a Westerner, and so I
Yeah,
started
yeah.
small. I had like durian ice cream for the very first time that I ever tried it, and, you know, and the flavor itself is almost like, it I remember it to be like buttery, like it's very like buttery and like a viscous kind of thing. It coats your tongue.
Yeah, yeah.
It's sweet, obviously, it's a fruit, um, but it stays and it lingers on your palate for quite a while. So
It does. It does. I mean, certain parts of Asia, like, they have signs, right? You're forbidden
yeah.
from India.
Yeah, that was my first, like, that. I was like, I landed and there's a sign on the airplane, right? So you're getting on the airplane to go fly from Kuala Lumpur to Sarawak to Miri, where I was living, and there's this giant sign like says no durian allowed on the airplane, right? And you're like, I don't even know what durian is, but and it was spiky. So I thought, oh, this must be bad, right? Like, this must be a bad thing. I didn't realize it was just a fruit that nobody wanted to smell on the airplane. But yeah, hotels, airplanes, malls, all giant signs. No durian during durian season.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, you know, you left Shell and then you started your own business for the first time.
Yeah.
Was a painting business. So what inspired you to start that?
Yeah, so we ended up leaving Shell because my daughter, who was born in the Netherlands, and then we moved to Malaysia, she had a speech delay. And so we brought her back to the United States during one of our trips. And a speech therapist was like, yeah, she needs special care because there's a few years where you have big jumps in speech. And, like, 3 to 5 is one of them. And then if you don't catch that one, then the next one's not till like 8 or 9 or something like that. I can't remember the exact things, but they're like, yeah, she needs to get it now, because if she doesn't get it, then she's gonna be delayed until she's, a bit older. And we couldn't get that care in Sarawak where we were stationed, and my boss wouldn't let me move to Kuala Lumpur. So my wife just moved back to the United States, and so I was working at Shell by myself for a few months, and then I was like, I can't. Like, I had done this when I was in the Marine Corps, and it's God and country, and you make these kind of sacrifices, but I wasn't going to do that at that time in my life. So I moved back to the United States. I had to give up an amazing job at Shell. I love Shell still to this day. It's one of the best companies that I know of, from a person perspective, from a company perspective. It was a great experience, but we had to go, and we moved back here. And I bought this old farmhouse. It needed a lot of work, and I had hired this guy to do the work. And so one day he's doing the work, and I'm here kind of just figuring out what I was going to do. And I was like, hey, how do you figure out the finances around how much you're going to charge for a job, and how do you do this, and like, how do you grow business here? And he didn't really have great answers on it. I was like, yeah, man, I wonder if we could put a process behind this paint thing and build a business. So he and I partnered, and that's what I did. I was like a business guy, and I put a process on it, and I figured out all the things that we used to do in the business world on how to build a business and budget it and manage it and scale it. And he was like the technical expert, and we did it. I mean, within 5 years, we'd grown a company from basically this guy working on my house to $1 million company. And that was really just applying all the things that I understood from like when I was in the Marine Corps and when I was in Shell, of just like, how do you identify a problem? How do you build a plan that gets you from where the problem is to where the solution is? And then how do you implement it like ruthlessly? Like, what are the steps that you follow ruthlessly? And then every time that you make a mistake, how do you hold yourself accountable without getting your feelings hurt? Because that's one of the things that you had to learn in the Marine Corps. Is like, you go out, you do a mission. At the end of the mission, there's a debrief, and the debriefs are ruthless, and you can't get your feelings hurt, right? Like, if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. And if you make a really bad mistake, then people get hurt. And so you can't get your feelings hurt every time you make a mistake. And so we made a lot of mistakes along that journey. And then we built this company. And then, I ended up kind of turning down the company as I transitioned to Clotheslyne, because it had gotten everywhere that it wanted to get. I had learned every lesson that I could learn. And now it was like time to take those lessons that I learned and transition it to this bigger opportunity, this opportunity that I felt like could be a national thing, without the level of oversight that a painting company needs, that is, quite frankly, extremely locally based, right? It's easy to compete and win on a local level. In the painting industry, it's not so easy on a national scale.
Yeah. And it's interesting you raised the point, right? A lot of the experience that you face, whether it's the Marine Corps, Shell, or even the painting business, is actually getting you ready for Clotheslyne as a platform that you're launching.
Yeah, every single thing that I've done, even from like the time all the way back as a paper boy, every single thing that I've kind of done has led me to this place where I can build, when I could look at an opportunity. Like, I see Clotheslyne as the Rover of laundry. I see it as $1 billion business. And I see that because every single thing that I've done along the way allows me to understand, what does it take to identify problems and then solve them? And then what does it take to scale that? And then how do you scale that onto a national level? And then how do you test yourself along the way? And so that's what we've been doing with Clotheslyne, is really just applying all these little lessons that I learned along the way, at scale and on a national level. And, I was fortunate because all the lessons that I learned along the way, I always had like this safety net, right? So I was, a paper boy is not that big a deal. If something goes wrong, I just deliver another paper. But if I test my route, if I test my timing, if I test, how do I deliver, then I can maybe be more efficient. And then when I was in the Marine Corps, you train and train and train and train and train. And then every single time you train, you have feedback. And so you're always learning and developing who you are. And then at Shell, there's not as much feedback, but there's feedback in other ways, right? Like, whatever you decided to do, was it successful? Was it something that you could replicate? Was it something somebody else within the business unit could replicate? And so you try to make sure that you're doing that, and then you're communicating what you've done and how you succeeded, on a national and international level. And then the painting day was like, okay, now let's take all that. Let's go back to the United States and let's see how we can be successful building a business with no safety net, right? Every decision I make, I'm the one who's making it. There's no billion-dollar budget behind me to save me. Like, is it the right one? Is it not the right one? Where did you make money? Where did you lose money? And so now we're in that same position with Clotheslyne, where every single decision that we make is on us, and we need to be comfortable with that, but also not afraid of it. And I'm not afraid of it.
Now, it seems like the painting business, it was risk on, but it was calculated risk. Clotheslyne, it's really risk on. So how important is to get support from your spouse and the family? Like,
yeah. Yeah, so right now we're in Techstars, New York City, and so as part of that, we committed to basically move down to the city. So myself, me and my co-founder moved to the city. I'm there Monday through Friday every day, which means that my wife and the kids are back at home, alone and unafraid. Thankfully, my parents are still in the picture, and so they help out with my wife, but yeah, no, if you don't do it, if you don't have that support, if you don't have the support of like a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old who will call you on FaceTime and be like, hey, Dad, I hope you're doing great. How was your day today? Like, did you talk to any investors? Like, they'll ask me those questions, even though at 9 years old and 7 years old, they might not understand the magnitude of that. Like, they're excited to see me continue to grow Clotheslyne, right? Because they saw it right from the very beginning, the very first sweatshirt, the very first logo. I mean, the thing was built in my garage here in upstate New York. And so they've seen where it started and where we've grown, and they've seen the challenges and the victories. And so when I say, hey, we got into Techstars, they know how long and how many meetings and how many prep sessions. They've listened to my pitch deck probably 1,000 times. I bet you my 7-year-old could give my pitch at this moment. And so, like, there's so much value in a unit, like a family unit, that is not just supportive, but like there with you on the line. And so when you say, hey, I got to go away for 4 days a week, they've seen the journey that you were on, even at like that very small scale. And it's they're on the journey with you, and so they're like, yeah, go do it, Dad, or my wife is like, go do it, and don't worry about us. Be in the moment, be there, and take advantage of the time that you're offered, because they understand it doesn't come all that often, and it's hard to get to where we are, and there was a lot of sacrifices. So they're there with me. It's been exciting, and I've been blessed really to kind of have that support.
Yeah. Now, talk a bit about, so two-part question is, what made you decide to be part of the Techstar program? And then two is, how you're finding it so far?
Yeah. So, I mean, being a part of Techstars is it's like getting accepted into Harvard. And I know you went to Binghamton, and my co-founder went to Oswego, and I went to the University of Scranton. And so I don't know what it's like or what feeling you get if you're a kid and you get accepted into Harvard, but I know what it was like for a kid from Oswego and a kid from the University of Scranton to get accepted into Techstars, where it's less than 1% acceptance rate, and you're going up against businesses throughout the entire world, right? These aren't just American companies that are trying to get into Techstars. These are companies from all over the world who understand the value of the network and the resources and the guidance that you receive in a program like that. And we applied a bunch of times. I'm not going to lie. Like, we applied our first year, even though we weren't ready. And then we applied again the second year. And then finally, Cam and I decided we were going to make it a priority in our lives. We understood that being from upstate New York and Goshen, we were at a significant disadvantage on our network and what we could achieve on our own. And so there was a Techstars demo day in New York City down at Chelsea Piers, and Cam and we dressed up and we took the bus down to the city and we went to the event. And I was not leaving until I met Elliot Mack, who is one of the heads of our team. And so all we did for like 4 hours in the blazing sun was try to find Elliot. And then I think it was after the event was over, there was a happy hour, and we finally found him. And it was like crowded. There was this room, there was like probably hundreds of people, right? Startups and founders and investors. And we found this guy and he was about to get a drink. And I was like, hey, Elliot, man, can I have a couple minutes of your time to talk to you about Clotheslyne? And I gave him my 30-second pitch, and then I was like, that's the best that we could do right now from where we were. And if you talk to Elliot today, he'll tell you he remembers me coming up to him in that crowd and giving him my pitch. And that was the beginning of the journey, And so then we actually finally got our first interview. And it was really just all about like, listen, we have got to go be where these guys are. We have to do this, right? And so we did it. And then that started the journey. And then there's this huge interview process. We end up meeting Jordan and, there's all these stuff. And I'll be honest, like the day that it was Tech Week, New York City Tech Week. I was down in the city doing my due diligence, and we had a Zoom call, and they told me that we were accepted. And I'm emotional now, but I was emotional. Like, it's hard to kind of quantify what it feels like when somebody recognizes something that you built with your own hands, and I'm thankful for that. So, I get emotional about it now. But yeah, so that was amazing. We got accepted, and we started the program in November, and it has been even more than I thought it was going to be. The access to people like you, people like unbelievable people coming and spending an hour with us. Like if you had tried to get an hour with some of the people that we've been able to speak to, it just would never happen. And yet here we are talking to the founder of Noom and like the founder of this company. And you're like, we met for an hour with the founder of Ramp, right? I mean, this is $1 billion company, and he spent an hour with our cohort just talking about his journey and, how he got there and some of the mistakes that he made along the way. It's spectacular, all the lessons that you can learn in a few months if you're willing to really be a part of it. And so we go to everything. We're at every single meeting, every brief, every whatever. Just this with me and you. Like I was like, I'm going to try to make this happen, because this is another one of those opportunities where maybe I can learn something.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. So thank you for being on today, Dan. That was amazing. I'm getting pings from people on how great of a conversation this is. Now, usually where we end the show is really the question back to you is, who do you want to connect with, and how can the audience help you in Clotheslyne?
Yeah, so we're in a growth mode right now. So Clotheslyne has when we first started the company, we knew right from the very beginning that laundry is a pain point for everybody in the United States. Like that's not the problem. The problem has always been with outsourcing laundry. The problem has always been like, how do you scale the ability to service people's laundry needs? And so we believe that we've conquered that scale option by combining it with the gig economy, and in particular with an empowering version of that gig economy, right? So instead of just labor, we see our people as real little kind of businesses, like tiny little businesses. And in particular, 80% of our clothesliners are women. A good deal of them are moms, either stay-at-home moms or single moms. And so for a long time, they've been looking for access into the gig economy that would allow them to make extra money for their family without like this huge time demand, right? Like driving an Uber or door dashing or being an Instacart person, which pulls them away from their family. And so they find value in Clotheslyne. And during our time of building Clotheslyne, we've decided, hey, we're gonna really concentrate on like, how do we win in a particular market, but also how do we scale this thing properly so that it can be the $1 billion business that we want it to be, right? So we said, hey, we're going to open up markets across the country. So we're from Alaska to Massachusetts, and that was all done as a way to test the viability of the platform, right? Does it work in different time zones? So do people in the Midwest want to outsource their laundry the same way that people in the Northeast want to outsource? And what about people in the South? So we have markets in North Carolina, and then like, what about all the way out in Alaska? Is this something that would be of interest to them? So we tested that thesis. It's true across the country. People are willing to outsource their laundry, and there are people who are willing to do laundry in a respectful and responsible way. It goes back to like those lessons that I learned in Malaysia with being respectful with your team and building a team that you value. And so, really what we're looking to do now is grow the company and offer this service to as many people as we can. Both services, right? The ability for clothesliners to build businesses and the ability for customers to claw back the hours that it takes them doing laundry a week. And so we're about to, start a, fundraising round, which will allow us to raise money that allows us to kind of like expand our operations along the East Coast and the Midwest and some portions of the far West, to kind of like make sure that this solution that we built on both sides is available to everybody. We're also looking for advisors, specifically advisors that, love the marketplace, that understand the challenges that women have entering the gig economy, and also like the pain points that women have within their own lives that they need to outsource things. I'll be transparent. We're two guys. We started a laundry company. We didn't realize the impact that it was going to have on women's lives in particular. And so one of the things we've been trying to close the gap on is finding advisors or people who are willing to help us really understand the service that we're offering to women and the gig opportunity that we're offering to women, and maybe find some people that'll help us more clearly define what that looks like, what success looks like there. So yeah, I mean, a lot of what we're doing, what we're trying to achieve is growth and becoming that next giant service-oriented marketplace. But the kicker is we want to do it respectfully and responsibly.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Dan. And thank you to the audience for your continued support. And again, Happy New Year to everybody. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.